abolished. What do you wonder about? Send us your questions at cpr.org/Colorado Wonders. Now, we wondered what's next when it comes to homelessness in Denver, now that voters soundly defeated Initiative 300, that's the Right to Survive measure. It would have repealed Denver's urban camping ban, among other things. Let's begin this conversation with Denverites housing and hunger reporter Donna Bryson. Hello again, Donna.
Hi, Ryan.
What about this debate over 300 do you think most resonated with voters?
I've been thinking back over the campaign. I think Denver Homeless Out Loud, the group that got this on the ballot, might not have expected to win, but they certainly didn't expect to lose so decisively and to have it made clear so early in the evening. And I'm thinking back that there was maybe one clear reason to vote yes, because if you're looking at it as a human rights issue, I've talked to people living on the streets who talk about just feeling of uncertainty, a feeling of being harassed by the police, a feeling of being asked to constantly move along. So we had that on the yes side. But on the no side, there were just so many reasons to vote no. There was concern about whether this initiative was written so vaguely that it would keep service organizations from helping, from reaching out to people in homelessness. There was, people are appalled at, I think, the sight of disorder on the streets, either here in Denver or the No campaign kind of pointed our attention to Seattle and Portland and Los Angeles. I think that was part of it, too. And then, I've spoken to people over the last couple of months who really speak with real anguish about this idea that if we vote yes, we're saying that's all that can be done about homelessness. And so all those things pile up, and we can't ignore the money.
Yeah, the money in this campaign was lopsided. Groups opposed to 300 had nearly 20 times, I think, the funding of supporters.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if lopsided is a word there, but it's hard to ignore. I look at the mail I got. I've got lots of mail from Together Denver. I don't think I saw anything from the Yes campaign.
Is there some sense that at least the conversation around 300 elevated the issue of homelessness in Denver?
I think the issue was pretty elevated. The issue of housing in Denver was top of the list for many of the candidates. And homelessness is part of that. It certainly 300 didn't hurt, but I think the issue was on people's minds.
And I suppose much remains to be seen based on who is elected Denver mayor and to the city council about how things move forward, huh?
Yeah, we're looking at a runoff with Jamie Gillis and Mayor Hancock. I'm looking back over the campaign again. There was one forum in which Jamie Gillis, she was not supporting 300. She didn't think it was the way forward, but she also doesn't support the camping ban. And she spoke about authorized camping for the city. On the other hand, Mayor Hancock supported the camping ban, still does. When I talked to his campaign about this idea of authorized camping, they wanted to make clear that he doesn't think allowing people to sleep on the streets, sleep under tents is dignified, but it's something he would at least talk about.
Okay, Donna Bryson, stick around. I want to bring in a voice from the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless. Kathy Alderman is VP of Communications and Public Policy there. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Ryan.
I'll note that your organization was neutral on this Right to Survive measure. But do I have it right that you still want to overturn the camping ban?
Absolutely. We feel that the camping ban is unproductive and oftentimes immoral, and it does nothing to actually move people into safe alternative spaces. So we've actually called on the city to cease enforcement of the camping ban until such time as they can guarantee that people have safe alternative spaces to go.
Does that just mean that there's not enough shelter?
Not enough shelter, not enough appropriate shelter. There's just a lot of people that need something different than what's offered right now. They need a place to store their belongings. They need a place to bring their pets, to be with their partners, and maybe a place that's a little less traumatic than some of our current shelter situations. And we really, I think the city needs to make a commitment, make an investment, and start making sure that those places are available for everybody while we wait for the critical housing resources to come online.
Can you help us understand the kind of chaotic place that a shelter can be and that some might want to avoid, particularly those with PTSD?
Sure. The shelters, oftentimes are large congregate areas where people, don't have separate sleeping spaces. They may be right next to another person. They also don't have places, oftentimes, for folks to store their belongings, again, to bring their pets. And they can be very isolating, and sometimes noisy. You're sleeping in a large room with a lot of people. So we think that in order to respect the dignity of folks that are forced to sleep outside, we need to really turn our attention and turn the resources into creating alternative spaces. And those alternative spaces might be some kind of sanctioned encampment area that is a partnership between the community and the city.
And is that before you get to the construction of apartments, or there's been the whole tiny homes movement? In other words, do you see that as a sort of stopgap?
I think that having alternative shelter is critical. We're in an emergency right now where way too many people are being forced to sleep outside. So we must make that investment and we must find those alternative spaces. We also need to look at transitional housing options, and tiny homes is one way to do that. Not necessarily to the scale that is needed, but it's certainly an alternative. But obviously, we need to really focus our efforts on getting more supportive housing resources and affordable housing resources online as quickly as possible.
In the debate over Initiative 300, there was a lot of pointing to other cities. Look how terrible it is in Los Angeles, for instance. Let's not create such a situation in Denver. Do you point to a city anywhere on Earth that has cracked this nut, though?
I'm not sure that we know of a city that has cracked the nut, but I think we have some cities that have implemented some best practices. For instance, Houston and San Francisco have both implemented navigation centers, which give people places to go during the day and help them to connect to the resources they may need to move them into housing.
Wait, help me understand that. So it's during the day, I don't have a home or perhaps a job, and what is a navigation center doing?
So a navigation center is a place where people can go, so that they're not just, wandering the streets of any given city, but they can go and they can talk to folks about, what it would look like to get connected to a housing resource. What would it look like to get connected to employment services? Getting online and doing some of your own research. Right now, we don't have very many spaces in Denver for folks to be during the day. We have very few day shelters, and so that means that people are checking in the evening to a place and checking out in the morning, and then kind of left, without any support or resources during the day. So I think a navigation center is a good first start.
Yeah, give me one
Um,
more idea.
um, as I mentioned, we need some transitional and bridge housing options. We need places that people can go to for 30 days or 60 days, while they get, back on their feet or get connected to the resources that they need. Right now, we don't have a lot of that transitional housing, and it's always easier to help somebody find a permanent housing solution if they are in a stable location for a longer period of time than a single night.
Okay, I'd like to bring Donna Bryson of Denverite back in at this point. Donna, I think that a lot of this connects to the question of NIMBYism, not in my backyard. Is that an obstacle to achieving some of what we're hearing there from Kathy Elderman?
Well, I sat in over the last couple of months over a lot of community meetings about tiny houses for a plot in Gloveville, and I heard some really entrenched ideas about what it means to be homeless, and some really angry reaction to accepting people who are living in homeless into a neighborhood. And yeah, that does need to be approached. Robin Kinich, who's I think pretty much reelected for city councilwoman at large, raised this during the campaign as well. That was her first point when she talks about homelessness, is that we have to have tiny villages or these options in every neighborhood, and we have to kind of address this pushback from neighborhoods. Not going to be easy.
I'm not so sure about Robin Kinich. Just looking at the numbers, Debbie Ortega, I think that's going to be a runoff. Do I have that right?
No, top two, there's no runoff for the
Top
at
two.
large.
Okay, but Debbie Ortega was in the lead.
Yeah, but the top two. So I think Robin was second.
For council members at large.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that, Donna, as we sort through this live. I guess, Kathy Alderman, I'll give you the last word here. How do you move forward in terms of policy with either the same administration or a new administration?
Sure. So we've called on the current administration to invest in the homelessness system. We asked them to invest about $50 million annually, and that this investment needs to be made immediately. We're working with the current administration to look to see if those dollars can be found in the current city budget. And if they can't be, then we're going to look at 2020 for a ballot measure. We think that it is long overdue for the city of Denver to invest in a homelessness service system that is responsive to all of the needs that we're seeing on the street. And if we have a new administration, we would push for the same. We would want to sit down with any newly elected officials to really define the problem, get to the number that we know we need, and get to the services and shelter spaces that we know we need. And again, if the current administration or the new administration doesn't feel like it can address the issue, then we would also look to the 2020 ballot to let the voters make the decision. I think one thing we heard during this election cycle is that people really do want to see the city of Denver address homelessness in a compassionate way and in a resourced way. And so I think we have a path forward to have Denver weigh in on how we address this issue.
So something like a sales tax, perhaps?
I'm not sure what the funding source is. We're kind of just starting to explore that. But I think some kind of dedicated funding stream that we can count on, that we can plan on, and that we can make sure actually makes improvements to people's lives.
Thanks for being with us. We appreciate your time, both of you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
So we heard from Kathy Alderman, Vice President of Communications and Public Policy with the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, and Donna Bryson. She covers housing and hunger for Denverite, which is now a part of Colorado Public Radio. We talked about homelessness in the city and county of Denver in light of the defeat of Initiative 300 on the ballot. That was the Right to Survive measure.